This is a model. This is a model, believe me, looks like a pretty realistic model. This is Frank McMillan's MB5 Martin Baker, and I consider this to be one of, maybe the premier semi-scale stunt model that I've ever flown. Of course, Frank let me fly this at the 85 Nats, and it was a thrilling experience to fly this model. Now the point here is, this is the tape 14 of the Tsunami construction series, and you can just see Frank has the little blisters up here on the nose, the exhaust, which we're eventually going to have to carve, sand, make out of tubing, whatever. The exhaust blackening on the side of the body. Details galore. We don't have a canopy, but he did. Absolutely flawless paint job, and here's the point I wanted to make. This is a true semi-scale model. And I don't want anybody out there to think that I'm making a semi-scale model. The accent on this model is on flying and on performance and lightweight. This is a whole nother ball game, and I think Frank and Al Rabe, Gid Atkinson, to name a few, I think even Whiteley, have made true semi-scale models. This is more like a semi-scale. I call it a fantasy model. It's just what I personally envision Tsunami to be. And so I'm giving Frank McMillan all the credit due, Al Rabe, Gid, Whiteley, whoever, I probably left somebody out here. But I really, when you think of how much work goes into a true semi-scale model, you really have to take your hat off to the people that make them. Now Midgley was so wrapped up in making a semi-scale model that he made this semi-scale model, which is really a little Midgley here, I don't know. Or a little Sharon, you can't tell from the picture. 630-90, it's a Midgley. Nice picture of Bruce Gifford and his son Nat in younger days. Oh man, looking at these old pictures is a heartbreaker. There's the picture from the 87 fly-off. Paul was the winner that year. And Ted looks like right now he's giving me the bada bing or blowing air on my hair here or something. Ted! Come on, calm down. The 85 Concourse winner. Boy, in this 85 album, do we have some memories. Oh my God. Killer Bee. More semi-scale pictures here. This is Frank Williams' profile, Bearcat. Walt Russell's awesome Cardinal paint job. Awesome, awesome. Send pictures to Midgley. He loves this paint job. So do I. One of my personal favorites, Billy Werwidge's Juno. Tom Dixon's T-Bird. Thunderbird. Here's a rare picture of Bob Gildini, one of the real gentlemen of stunt here. I hope you can see this. And the topic of discussion here, we were at the I think the 87 Nats. And Bob had told me, yeah, I just lost my job, but I got a job as a go-go boy in a nude bar. So here he is tuning up and showing us all his little steps. And of course, who could forget Mike Rogers? He was supplementing his income part-time here by testing sleeping pills and the effect of marijuana on a person painting an airplane here. Mike, I'm telling you, this picture is priceless. You ever get married, I'm giving this to you. Speaking of go-go boys, look at his Peggy Ortiz luring me into some illicit act here at the team trials in 89, 87, who knows. Bob Gildini, the king of Milwaukee. All right, down to the shop. Let's get to work. Now in this tape we're going to try to do a little spin-off fantasy of this Tsunami paint job. Now remember, I started this video off with the semi-scale thing because I wanted to make a point. This is not a complete semi-scale Al Rabe type of plane. This is my own fantasy airplane, and therefore we're going to take some liberties with the paint job, the lettering, the numbering, the actually every aspect of it, because we're trying to create something from our mind's eye here. We're not trying to duplicate something, some semi-scale thing. We're trying to create from our mind's eye. So step one is we want to figure out exactly how we want to go about doing this paint job. Now my feeling always is that you should always do the trim first, and of course we're going to try to do that. In most typical paint jobs, the trim would be a first time thing. But in this case, what I'm going to do, I'm going to mix paint. I'm going to take clear SIG light coat and some of this custom lucite, custom red, Tsunami red that Midgley provided to me. And what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to run a little test here to see if first off, if I like the color, number two, if it covers, and number three, am I going to have to paint silver underneath, white, gold, what's going to happen, or is this going to be a good enough coverage thing? Now the other thing is I want to add some, we'll go back here to old silver breath, I want to add some pigment to this paint. I want to put more than normal amount of red pigment in the hope that I can at the last minute sand off all the silver and you know, save the weight of the silver, but that might or might not be possible. But we're starting out with that in mind. Now when you mix your own paint and you add your own pigment, the point at which you can't add any more pigment is the point at which the paint becomes chalky and you can't get a clean ink line on it. So what we do is run a little test. I'll mix some up with the normal amount, which is about 10% pigment. Normally I can go up to about 20 or 25, but I'll start at 10, maybe 15, see what the coverage is, and before I actually go on to, you know, making a final decision on this color red. Now it's a significant thing because we've never mixed pigment with the light coat. We usually mix it with acrylic, but this is going to be a test, so I suspect we may have to do a little experimentation off camera before we're happy with the result. And the other part of this is I have a can of SIG white, light blue, and dark blue, and I'm going to start by mixing up the blue, which will be the wingtips and parts of the wave. Again, I want to do it all with SIG dope. I don't want to have any, hopefully at this point in time, any acrylic on here. I'd like to do the whole model in SIG dope. Now with that in mind, I have a couple little touch-up spots here. There's a couple of spots on the bottom, one on the back by the rudder. I'm going to do these off camera and then get on with the paint job. And boy, believe me, I've been waiting long enough. I want to start seeing this guy become an airplane. We're ready. Midgley's ready. Bob Gialdini's ready. Now I hope what I have on here is the last coat of silver. And the last thing, of course, is to get some M600 before we start masking this off and mixing paint and whatnot. Get some M600 and just wipe the whole thing down, get rid of the fingerprints, get rid of the little boogers and everything that's on here. Get a real good cleaning on the whole plane. There's always dust and dirt and whatnot. We're going to take the sheet, we're going to flip the sheet over, or maybe we don't get another sheet. I think we got one more left in there. Get a clean sheet. We want to start working in a dust-free, clean, grease-free, booger-free environment here. So I'm going to finish cleaning this up, get a nice new sheet on here. I just want to point out one of the mistakes you can make. Now see, I've been sanding silver on this for about the last 2 weeks, and you can see what a mess this sheet is. Well, obviously, you know, get Karen to wash it. We could flip it over and we have a sheet underneath it, but even that's got some stains, so I'm going to reach, Jesus, put this in the wash. Now, the reason I'm mentioning this is I tried at one time not changing the sheet. I figured, oh, it'd be so cute, and there's all little contamination on this sheet and everything. When you start using masking tape, mixing paint, doing trim, which is what we're going to do right now, boy, the lint thing you need is an old dirty, lint, bubbly, fuzzy sheet. So we're going to get a nice clean one out of the wash and put this one back in the wash. And believe me, don't leave that step out. That's not an option. Now one of the things you may want to do is what I do is save all your old bed sheets, and anytime you're talking to anybody that has a lot of kids and stuff, they have a lot of sheets, well, hey, you can use them. Okay, that's the first step. We have the plane all wiped down. We're going to mix up the paint next. Now the first step is we have the paint here and we want to start mixing up the blue, the light blue for the wingtips. The wingtips on this are light blue and we're going to need some light blue on a wave. So first color we'll mix up here is the light blue. Then we can spray the tips, and while that's drying we can be concerned with the rest of the trim job here, the wave and whatnot. Actually, it's a pretty simple paint job. It's not that complicated, but it's one of those deals where I want to get the colors just right, and I certainly want to get the look that I'm looking for, that mind's eye view. Now I just took a jar. Whenever you want to mix a custom color, what I do, I start out with what's in the lid. In this case it's the light blue. And I'll take a clear jar, add a little bit of dark blue, a little bit of white, till I get the tone that I want. In this case though, what I want to do is have a really bright light blue. So what I'm doing is taking some blue candy apple, adding it to the white, and then I want to see if it's a brighter blue and if it matches the picture that I have. If I have a little bit, I want to wind up with 3 or 4 shades of blue here for when I airbrush in the wave. So right now I'm going to try to make up 3 or 4 shades of light blue, and then use the brightest one for the wingtip panels. I have to tell you, this red, this is the red. Now this is pigment only in this can. This is what Midgley sent me, and it's about the brightest red I've ever seen. I don't know how this is going to show up on the tape. I've mixed up, now this is the Sig light blue, and this is the light blue I mixed with candy apple and white, and it's much brighter. It's a brighter blue. So now I have 2 shades of light blue. I want to mix up a third one, kind of a dark, and what I'll do is I'll take the dark blue and mix a little white in it. That'll give me 3 shades of light blue, and then I can make the final decision, go over to the colored picture of the airplane, and figure out which one I really want to use. I'd really like, probably going to use the brightest one. The Sig one is nice and light, but it's not bright. It doesn't jump out at you. The one made with candy apple paint and white just has a lot more jump out at you-ness, whatever that is. Again, this is the artist part. You just got to play. You know, after quite a bit of mixing, we wound up with the red. We're real happy with the red color. That's going to stay just the way it is, and we're going to mix it with clear. We have the dark blue, which will be part of the wave and part of the stripe, the thin stripe on the wing. And we have 3 shades of light blue that'll go into making the wave. The medium, which is the brightest, it's this color blue. This is the one that's going to go on the wingtips. And we have the white for doing the number 18 and the lettering. So, as an artist palette, you really have to sit here and spend a good half hour or so fooling around with the paint, matching it to the drawing before you get to this point. Now, the real sexy thing is I got to go take Flexoil and fisheye killer and get some in every one of these batches. Don't leave that out for all the money in the world. I'm trying like crazy not to, you know, the whole reason for using dope instead of lacquer is because of the silk span open bays here. I want it to stay flexible as long as possible, so I'll get the Flexoil, get the fisheye and all this paint, and we'll be ready to start masking off. Now the first little test part I did, the little gear doors, it looks like I'm pretty close to having the color I want, and at least for now it looks like we may not even need the silver. This is going right over. Again, I'll wait till the morning to see how this dries up, but this is going right over. And the other thing, whenever you do red, you want to put just a little more on. When you're finished, you think that's enough, put a little more on, because ultraviolet always hurts red. Alright, we're going to spray a couple more test pieces and just see how these come out. Now after painting the 2 little gear doors, I added a little more pigment to the paint. I've got it to the point now where it's covering in 1 coat, yet I'm still going to give it like a coat and a half, because I know when I take this out in the sun, it's going to be, well, ultraviolet does affect it and it fades it, so give it a good coat and a half. But it absolutely doesn't look like I need the silver at all, so before I even spray this mainframe, I'm going to get the rest of the silver off. Don't need the silver at all with this color. This is really a nice bright color red, by the way. See, I tried to get cute here, and I put a little more pigment in, and the paint went dead flat dull. Now, You can see there's a little bit of a shine on this. This one flat dull. So what I'll back out, I'll put a little more clear in there, a little more thinner, just to reduce the amount of pigment. I'm now at about 1/3 pigment, and it's too much. I got to go back down to about 25%. And just by going back and forth with the thinner, the light coat, and the pigment, the number it looks like is about 25% pigment and about the other half thinner and half clear. Just a rough number here with this particular pigment. And this is not a very high covering pigment. That's why I mentioned it's not like white where it's all pasty and milky. This is more like dye. Now the next thing, I want to put the flaps on the plane and then lay out the trim on the wing. And I'm going to do the trim just a little different than the real model. I want to put a little bit, make it a little bit fancier anyway. Now what I always do is I lay out roughly 1/3 of the wing. I measured it off a picture. 1/3 of this wing is light blue. But what I'm going to do is compromise it and make it a little bit less. In fact, I'll make it 1, 2. It looks like I'm going to lay this out 4 rib bays just to see what that looks like. And then I want to have a little kink in the flap, a little that isn't on the real model, just to fancy it up a little bit. Otherwise, it just looks like you painted the wingtips, and not fancy enough for me anyway. And this is a fantasy model anyway. That's why I went into that thing with the semi-scale, so you can understand we don't have to be exactly to scale here. It's not a scale model. Okay, so I'm going to start laying this out with the 1/8" tape. In fact, it's almost the end of the night now. Karen's going to be calling me. Maybe I'll just let this go till tomorrow and get a look at what this is going to look like when we're all finished. Should be real nice. Now before I actually start the paint job, what I always like to do is make myself up a little plan. The whole idea of the plan is I want to have 1 coat of paint on everything. This is an important concept if you're looking to save weight, no matter what the paint job is. And I'll just give you an example. On Tsunami now, this is the worst thing we would want to do, is paint the whole plane red and then try to paint this light blue. What would happen is when you go to paint over red, light blue over red, you would probably need 40 coats of paint to do it. And all this is going to be weight, extra weight all over the place. Also, when we go to do the rudder, the wave on the rudder, if the aeroplane is red and we try to paint white through it, if you try to put white over red, my God, you could use a quart of paint to do it. So, bingo. So the first thing I want to do is plan out, no matter what paint job it is, whether it's a Cardinal or a Tsunami or whatever, want to make a plan. And what I want to do is I'm going to lay out, and I'll do this, make a little sketch anyway. Do it right on camera here. We want to do red last. Always, no matter what or how you paint an airplane, always do the red last. It's always the best idea. So what we're going to try to do is we're going to do the 2 wingtips here. These are going to be light blue. Now another advantage of doing this is you only wind up with 1 coat of paint on everything. It'll save some weight. Then we want to do the canopy. That's going to be some shading and some airbrushing. And we also want to do the wave. And we'll use Walt Prey's method with the tin foil. Give him some credit. That was a great idea. Then what we'll do is we'll backmask all of these colors, and this will be a relatively easy job, and paint all the red. Now what I did yesterday, I did the little test with the red. I did the little doors and hatches and stuff. What I'll do today is at some point in the day while I'm waiting for something to dry, I'll put some clear on top of these. And by putting the clear on top of the pigmented parts, you can see if you have too much pigment. If you have too much pigment, the paint kind of separates and you can look down and see the filler. But if the paint stays nice and red and solid, and then I can obviously go out in the sun or into the snow as the case may be, and see if I have enough red on there that I'm not going to have one of these paint jobs that when you take it out in the sun you can look right through and see the spots of silver. I really know I'm going to need more than 1 coat of red. Right now it looks like I'm not going to need the silver. So By making this little plan up, I can save myself some weight, some time, some aggravation, and the overall job will be a lot better. Just some of the products we're going to be using. This is the 3M thin tape. We also have some of the green fine line and ordinary old 3M body shop masking tape and aluminum foil will be some of the products that we're using. I bought about 20 different kinds of tape here, and you can see here's some blue scotch, some pink, some green. Fine line is good, and there may or may not be some uses somewhere in the program for this, but for right now, basically just going to use the 1/8 inch masking tape and the fine line. I always like to go over this. This is possible mistakes you can make when you do a red airplane. Number one is not enough red. And God knows I've done enough red airplanes to know this. Number two, never. Let me make this a never, 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 never sand colored paint. This will save you an airplane. I've done this before. I've tried to lightly sand colored paint, and what happens is the sandpaper puts little scratches like this in the paint. You go to hit it with clear, the thinner gets in here, and now you have big gouges and rivulets and rivers, and all of a sudden, and it can turn into that. It looks terrible. Never sand colored paint. If you're going to sand colored paint, spray clear on top of it first, and then sand the clear. So another thing, and Dave ran into this problem, I think Rick Campbell did too, not enough red. And I guess this would go not only for red, but for any color. Red is usually made with dye. Candy apple red has dye in it. And what happens in your shop conditions, it looks good, it looks fine. In fact, we just have parts here. Let's get a piece, just to give an example. Hey, that looks real red. Now see, it's a dull finish red because we know we have on the upper end of the amount of pigment we can use to cover, but we've got a real good red. Now we're going to shoot this with clear, of course, but keep in mind what happens here is a lot of times you get it where you just have enough red on there. Oh, it looks great. Now you put the clear on it, it kind of dissolves it a little bit, and then you can kind of see what's underneath a little bit, and it looks too thin, and you wish, in fact, I think Dave had to go back and put some more red on his plane. Especially any of the pigments, any of the candy apples that use dye, that's a problem. You really need to put on a good coat and then go right over it again and give it a kind of a light second coat to get it to dry. Not to dry, to get it to cover. There's just one good example here. Now we'll do this little test, maybe we'll even do it on camera too with some light coat to see if we have too much pigment in there. But that looks like it covered real well, and there's no silver underneath that. Now a good place to test this is because the cowling, who cares if the cowling weighs a little bit extra. Once you do your pigmented paint like this and mix up some light coat, go outside, spray this with 2 or 3 coats of clear light coat and see how it looks in the sun. Then if you know it looks okay in the sun, and it has to be in bright sunlight, don't do this on a cloudy day. In fact, today it looks like it's going to snow the rest of the day. We're not even going to be able to do this today. This is an important test. Don't leave this step out, especially if you're doing a red color or a candy apple color, colors that have dye in the pigment. Pitfalls. Wrong tape. Let's go right down the list here. Old tape, because today is a good day to refresh our memory. Okay? Sticky tape. Okay. Wrong tape would mean you're not using true masking tape. You're using some kind of imitation, or who the hell knows what. Seen all kinds of imitation 79-cent a roll tapes. Good masking tape costs money. It's not 79 cents a roll, believe me. Fresh tape. The best place to buy tape is go to a body shop supply. Now the reason for that is they have a turnover. The tape is never more than a month old. If you go to Rickles, who the hell knows how long it's been on the shelf, or Home Depot or whatever. Old tape gets stickier and stickier and stickier as time goes by. And that almost would include tape that's too sticky. Frost King tape. Frost King tape is about $1.50 a roll instead of $3. So you think, real cheap tape, great, I'll use it. Bingo, up comes the paint. Now, in our case, we want to use the thin tape, of which there are two kinds. You have fine line, that makes nice straight lines, and the masking that makes nice curves. Well, in the Rudder, of course, we're going to have a lot of curves and angles. Canopy, but in the wingtips you could use this, but it almost doesn't matter. We have some nice fresh, we just bought it yesterday, tape. We're going to use all masking tape as far as I know right now, but just get your idea in mind here what some of the pitfalls can be. Whenever you lay a piece of tape out, seal the edge that you're going to paint with one coat of clear light coat on a thin brush. That'll give you a nice edge. Always let the tape, whenever you put tape down, the tape should stay down. I'll make a word up here. Tape down time. I had this great plane, a replica of Larry Scarinzi's Blue Angel, and I taped it off. And what a mistake it was. I taped it off on a Friday night thinking I'd get up early Saturday and paint it. Well, I got up early Saturday and the compressor broke. And by the time I got the compressor fixed, the tape was on the plane for, oh my God, a week. 6 days, 7 days. And when I pulled up the tape, it left all kinds of pock marks. It pulled up paint. It left residue. What we're looking for is the minimum tape down. In other words, we want to put the tape down, put the tin foil down, paint this. We want it to dry overnight so we get a nice clean tear line. All lacquer should stay down overnight. Tear it and get the paint right up. We also want to have, when we're going to mask off, we want to lay down a thin stripe of the thin tape. And then the wide tape would go onto the thin tape. So hopefully the part that goes out over the paint, this area here, will be we'll rub that on our shirt a few times so it's not so sticky, and then the aluminum foil will have nothing. So actually the only piece that has real tape stickum on it is that 1/8 inch edge. Just the edge, and then it's sealed with the clear light coat. When you do that, if you go and take normal masking tape and start taping it off like when you do the newspaper routine and putting tape all over everything, it gets risky. You can ruin a good paint job. So these are just some of the pitfalls to think about. We're going to have our nice second cup of coffee here and then get started on our trim job. Just some things to think about. Now, as I probably said yesterday, and I'm sure I showed on the video, get a nice new sheet out. Dust free. I vacuumed up real good off camera. Wipe this guy down. He's nice and clean now. Get everything as clean as a whistle as you possibly can. Get a nice fresh brand new roll of tape out and we're ready to start masking this off. And one of the first things I like to do is get myself a brand new double-edged razor, put some tape on one end. All the tape cutting should be done with a double-edged razor if you want the neatest possible edges. Get out some masking tape, tape the edge you're going to be pressing on. This goes a long way to having nice edges. When you try to cut this tape with X-Acto knives and things, you just don't get the nice neat edge. And you really have to replace this every once in a while. Now I'm just laying out my one little angle here in the corner. I want to kind of, this isn't on the scale aeroplane, but just to make this a little bit fancier than it normally is. And I'm trying to make roughly the same amount of wingtip. The light blue color is on the scale model, so it kind of has the same look. Now after laying it out on both wings, I realized I had a little bit too much, so I moved the tape in one rib. I didn't want to have so much. I kind of looked at the picture on the wall and said, too much. Because don't forget, in here we're going to have to paint that number 18, and I want an area that matches, kind of matches the model anyway. And I want that little cuff on the end just to fancy it up a little bit. Now all I need to do now is just take this, and let's do the bottom. We'll do one wing panel on camera and get the bottom matched up. We have the tape sticking up. I cut the tape on the hinge line. Now once I get that line, because our paint's going right through the hinge line, I can use the flap for a little paint test anyway. I'm just going to cover this with the masking tape and the tin foil, and guess if you haven't seen that on video yet, there's a whole video covering that from last year's series. But using the tin foil method will mask this right off. Now I always take the tape, rub it up on your t-shirt or whatever. I try to put a clean shirt on today. I know you people don't think I own a clean shirt, but I do. Get it so just a minimum sticks out over the masking tape. Really got to thank Walt Prey for this tip too. This has just proven to be super duper duper. And if you haven't seen the 93 tape on using tin foil, boy, that might be one you want to check out. Alright, we're going to obviously just repeat this on the wing and on every other place that we're going to back mask. We're going to do all our back masking with tin foil. We'll show this once and that's it. There we are. That part is ready to spray. Now you want to press the edge of the tape down before we put the clear on. One of the things you don't want to do is ball up the aluminum and squash it into the paint. Now be very gentle about grabbing it, and don't hold the plane by the aluminum, because the aluminum, if it balls up, can put a little dent in the aeroplane. Soft balsa wooden tissue, we don't want to have that. And that's great. Now watch, one wingtip done already. One wingtip, one flap, pretty much ready to go. Okay, what you want is a long-haired brush. Long, thin hairs for getting that a nice thin stripe along the edge of the tape. Well, you just want to lay the edge of the tape down with some thin light coat.
This is the end.
And all this does is seal up the edge of the tape. Now I'm making up a label. I'm mixing up the clear for this year's ship. And I'm making up a label for the jar so I don't get it confused. What year I mixed it up, what kind of thinner, fisheye flex oil, and what ready to spray at what pressure with that thinner. And I'll label this up on a jar and get to do that little test on a cowling and spray the blue tips. Okay, while I'm spraying here and I have the door to outside open, what I'm going to do is run that little test. I mixed up a gallon of clear. I want to run that little test, I want to get a feel for just how that red is going to look with the clear on it. And I also want to paint the blue wingtips, and then I'll shut the door and get back in here. Now that's another thing with time management, is trying to figure out how to get, in this case we're trying to spray on some really awful conditions, had to get the spraying done and get it all done in one shot, and then get back in here and turn the heat on. So that's it's getting a little complicated here in this house. Okay, ready to spray. Now I'm real happy with the spray out here on this red. Looks like it's going to be fine. Looks like we won't have. We'll just put a little more thinner in the clear. I want to get a little more shine on that, and we'll be all set. That's the first coat of clear. All right, we can go on to the light blue. Now I took the light blue out into the sun just to see how I liked it. It really is a nice bright blue, and it matches the picture perfectly. What I'm going to do later is play the video and hold this up to the video to make sure I have the color just right. It covers like iron. Beautiful. Real happy with this so far. The red is looking good. The blue is looking good. I think you can see from the tape this color really covers like iron. It's great. I'd say half of the whole secret of these paint jobs is getting used to mixing your own paint with pigment. If you use store-bought paint, you're really at a handicap. When you put your own pigment in, you can get the exact color you want, and like an artist with a palette, you can match colors. It's really worth it to learn how to work with raw pigments. It really is. Realize something. The tip weight box is blue, not red. Oh my God. Now see what a screw up that is? Well, luckily we'll just paint over the red. But see, now there's a typical screw up when you don't think about it. The tip weight box should be blue. So I can take that later, just take it and spray it. Now what I'm going to do is, of course I'm spraying in here, I'm going to get out of the shop for an hour or so and run down a post office. Let the house air out. Before Karen files for a divorce. Now, I would really suggest anybody hasn't worked with mixing your own paint with pigment, give it a try. I feel better already. I know Midgley's going to remind me of this the rest of my life. Anyway, one of the things with the light blue I wanted to mention is it looks like the light blue is going to cover in one coat, but because it's a very light color, I'm going to let this sit and give it a second coat, maybe a half hour or so from now. But for now, I'll put this away, let the cellar air out, get my rear end to the post office. Now the next thing, while this is drying, I want to lay out the tape. And what I do is I lay out and I try to eyeball it from the front and from both sides to see that I have it even. Of course, you have to just go back and forth until you have it that you're happy with it. This looks pretty even. Only about 400 times I've moved the tape. Anyway, now I can get in there. Now, that's the shape that I want the canopy. Now I'm just going to mask off underneath it and then make my slat at the back. It's always easier if you mask off the part that you want to paint with tape. Okay, now maybe I can show this real easily. And then pull out the part, the original masking piece. In other words, we use this piece to establish how big we want the canopy. If you don't, you wind up with a canopy that's either bigger or smaller than you originally wanted. And now we can just sight it and check it. It looks pretty good. You just have to keep going back and forth here until we have now I want to look right down the snoot here and make sure this is even. from that angle. I want to look at it from the back, from the side. Make sure they're both even from the top. There's a lot of little angles here before we finalize this and trim off the tape. Now what I've done is a whole lot of times I've changed the curve right around the front here. It's a pretty important curve because as you look at it from the front view, you want to see an equal amount of canopy on both sides of this scoop. It just takes a little time to get it just the way we want it. Okay. Now just notice on the real Tsunami here, there's a little lip just before this silver bar. That little lip. Now I want to tape that lip off now. I'm not going to do the silver bar. I just want to tape the lip off. So what I'm going to do is just get a piece of 1/8 inch tape, leave this line on here, and simulate that double line. And when we're all finished with the canopy, I'll put in a silver stripe. And I realized I had the back angle wrong for what should be a Tsunami canopy, so I'm going to trim that back tape off, leave that little stripe on as we paint it. That's why I can fade it right in. Now just looking at this from every possible angle to try to even up the tape before I set it down and make it permanent. Okay, next step we'll get a little bit of clear around all the edges here. Press this down real nice. And get the tin foil around it. Get ready to put some paint on. Okay, getting ready to spray. I want to do the preliminary fog in here with the candy apple blue, but now the way I usually do this is I start out on a tin foil and then just walk your way up onto the canopy. And then just pull the gun back. That's the easiest way I know how to do a nice fogging job. Okay, start out on a tin foil. I guess you can't see this side, so work your way up onto the canopy and just fog it right in. Now same thing in the back. Start on the back, get on the tin foil, and just start walking up toward the canopy. Now you can just go right around the edge. Now you should have a good feel for it. Go right around the edge. Do the band up here. I think the candy apple blue with the blue wingtips is gonna set it off real nice. Now if you go too far and you wind up that you have all blue and you don't have any silver highlights, then obviously the next thing you want to do is just go put some silver back in the gun and hit it with some silver. And you just want the slightest bit of silver showing right at the top when it's right. That should be pretty good. Now, if you wanted to really add more three-dimension to this, you could outline it with a little bit of airbrush with some black. What I want to do right now, I'm just going to give this a quick coat of clear. And the only purpose of the clear is just to seal it up so we don't get a fingerprints and things on it. Silver is very vulnerable to fingerprints. This is just a coat of light coat. Now, if you really wanted to make this really exotic, what you could do is get a little bit of white pearl, and right in the middle of this, just put a spot of white pearl. That always gives it a little accent, too. As the final thing, after this dried up, I decided to just edge it with some black, just to get a little more, a more three-dimensional look here, I guess is the right word. Now, just peeling the outside tape away. I'm not taking the inside tape away. In other words, everything that leaves an edge here I want to leave dry overnight. But I want to start working on outlining the wave, so anything that gives me a line there, always let it dry overnight if you can. These are the little half-A Dubro hinges we're going to use for the rudder. So I'm going to cut 4 of them down and get them just put in temporarily so I can hook up the rudder. And by doing this, we can get rid of about half of the weight of the 4 hinges here. This is all we're going to wind up with. And this is way behind the CG, so this is all we really need. Yeah, we need the rudder attached with the hinges. This is just temporary, not glued in. The reason we need that is we're going to lay out the tape for the wave. Try to get the rough outline of what we want to have for the wave. I just wanted to get a little overview. I pulled off the tin foil, but I left the 1/8-inch tape on there. I'll take that off till it sits overnight. That'll give me the nice, hopefully, the nice clean edge. Got the rudder on with the 4 little hinges. Want to make sure I have free movement and that everything lines up just nice. And I want to get a little overview. This is important too. I just want to take this outside in the sun real quick for 1 minute and see what this color blue looks like in the sun. Make sure that I'm happy with it. Get a little look at the canopy, make sure I'm happy with that, because I can still change it, of course, very easily right now. Anyway, then I'm going to come back up and try to lay out the wave, get the tape outline, make a little pattern. I don't know what I'm going to have to do yet to get it in position. Kind of like the way this rudder fits into the back of the fin in a little recess here. I think it looks kind of neat. I need to get some kind of an alignment here and start making myself up a rough, maybe a piece of paper, a pattern here, roughly what I want to, the way I want to outline this. Now, step 1, I'm just looking at the picture and trying to sketch this. Of course, this is going to change somewhat. Now I'll rough this out with scissors first. This is just the roughest of rough. I want to put a little taper in this. Again, most of this you just do by eye. Back and forth till you get whatever you think it is. You know, I know this is on the big side. I want to change the shape up top here. And I'll just go back and forth with this against the drawing, even if I have to make 10 of these little patterns up. Just a hit or miss thing, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Now after I rough the first one out, now I want to go back. And what I want here is, I want more of a hook here. I want this to come down. Again, probably just have to go back and forth. And I want a little more thickness in the back here. And then this can end maybe 1/8 of an inch longer. Actually, it's not as easy as it looks to make this wave. It's kind of, when I did it on a drawing originally, it wasn't that difficult, but now it's in a three-dimensional thing. It's a little more difficult. But you have to start with something. You have to start with a pattern, or you're not going to get a mirror image. Not quite. Still needs more height. This has to go higher up on the rudder. Let's see, higher up on the rudder. And a little bit longer. I guess we could go on forever here, but just take my word for it. We'll just keep cutting paper dolls until we get one that we like. Now, if you want to cheat, of course, you can go take a real picture of Tsunami and photo enlarge the tail. But that's cheating. That's like decals. Everybody knows. No craftsmanship. Got to be hand painted here. Okay, this is about the 10th one here. Pattern number 652, but it looks like we're getting real close now. I know that because we're running out of paper. Well, getting closer. It has to go up quite a bit. Up. I think you can get the idea. We're just going to hammer this out here. We have some time. We're just going to hammer it away until we get the pattern shape that we want. That is just our final outline here, just an outline of where we want to do the painting. Now we're going to do all the rest of the little doodads in here. I don't know, by hand or by brush yet, I don't know. Should be a lot of work. Now the trick is to make a mirror image on the other side. So just take the pattern, reverse it on the other side, and hope I get it real close, and then I'm going to mask it off and paint it silver. Now one of the things I do is when I get what I hope is the mirror image here, you know, I run my hand on both sides at the same time just to see that I have it. Kind of eye down the fuselage to see that I have the same thing on both sides. And again, it's just going back and forth, maybe, you know, how many times, who knows. Alright, and then I get some tin foil, get this masked off. Okay, ready to spray. Gonna hit this with silver first, and then get the first shade of blue on there. That's about all we can do tonight. We'll come back tomorrow and do some of the details on the wave. Been a good day. Good day. Got a lot of little stuff done today. Just got this picture today from Fred Kruger. These are the winners of a Midwest contest, and he said what was ironic. Everybody here is named Kruger, but they're not related. Jim Kruger, Fred Kruger, and Krugerand, or whoever the other guy is. Anyway, all you Krugers out there, you know, hey. By the way, this is a, what the heck did I, Impact. Paul Walker, if this, maybe this isn't. This is, it looks like the one I saw that Jim Kruger had, Paul Walker's plane, and it flew very well. Anyway, back to the shop, and let's get back to working on the wave, soon to be known as Ocean Spray. We were looking at jars the other day for some inspiration on this wave, and I found the thing, Ocean Spray Cranberry Juice. Can you believe this? Ocean Spray Tsunami. Now, I took some IBM cards here, and I just cut out some random little, this will be part of the wave, this will be part, I just try to simulate some of the little designs that are in the Tsunami wave. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get some green, some blue, some light blue, some dark blue, 4 or 5 shades of blue, and just with the spray gun, just, well, I guess just do it by hand until I have that look of the wave that's on the real Tsunami. And you can see the rudder itself, there's quite a few different shapes in here, quite a few different, the white blends to the green and the blue, and we want to get some of that and some of these little texture pieces in here. So again, we're just going to do this by airbrushing in little by little by little, and take a look at it, look at the picture, go back, look at the thing. They cut up some more IBM cards. I took out a whole handful of IBM cards. This probably be a little time consuming, and just bear with us on it. Of course, we started off by letting this dry. This is dried overnight already. And we'll just try by eye, just laying out where we think some of these little spots should be. Just trying to work my way up here and get a variety of shapes. I don't want it to look like wallpaper, you know, I want it to have a little bit of a... randomly just space them in. Now, of course, you can cut as many patterns as you like. There's no reason to limit yourself here. Okay, just a little look at what we've done here. Now, what we want to do, obviously, is reverse all the templates. Make sure this is dry, but by reversing them, now we get 2 for the price of 1. And again, these make sure they're just dry. We'll change the paint color in the gun. We'll go get some white and get some, you know, we're just blending this in now. Just give you some idea of just what's involved here. I don't know if Walt Prey would be impressed with this, but hey, this is a wave, tsunami. We want to get the next thing is the white, the fluff in the white. Yeah, the more layers of this you put on, the more three-dimensional it becomes. It really gets three-dimensional after a while. So now just reach in and take out one of your other guys here. And sometimes you can just add a piece of it. You can just lay a piece of this down here and just do the point. And it makes it three-dimensional. A lot of this is just use your imagination. Alright, last we'll get some white in here. There's no sense trying to make a super pattern here or anything. You just get wherever you think you can get some color. The more uneven it is, the better it'll look when it's finished. Again, I'm just trying to simulate roughly how the drawing is. I just like the picture. There's just a little bit of green in here. I'm trying to get just enough green that it looks realistic. Switch the templates. Now I don't know how well you can see this. Now what I'm going to do, after this is all finished of course, and we paint the red and everything on here, the next thing I'm going to try to do is do a little bit of hand work with a brush. Do the little swirls around the top, but I want to get the paint edge in there, and then I can break the edge. It'll look a lot more realistic. But for right now, hey, I guess that's going to be part of the wave. The wave, ocean spray. I can hear Midgley now. Ocean spray cranberry sauce. How I love it. Anyway, we'll pull this tape off tomorrow. Let this dry overnight. No sense rushing it now. And we'll be back here in the morning. Now this is just a refresh, give you some ideas. Maybe you can use this on your next ship. You can use some kind of idea. Who knows? Paint something unique, different, original. One of the techniques I used to use years ago when I did custom cars and vans and boats and who the hell knows what else we used to paint. All kinds of junk. But just one of the techniques, and this is just making templates, any shape, any size. For instance, if you were going to make a Magnum, you could make the outline of a gun and put it all over the place, or a Mustang, you could make a horse's outline. All kind of cool ideas. For us though, it's the wave, as Midgley would say. Okay, the rest we'll finish up with the brush, and needless to say, let it dry overnight before you pull off the tape. You can see we pulled off the tape on this, and we have the nice clean neat edge. We got the flaps pulled down. Get the tape off as soon as possible. 24 hours, but not 25. Get a nice neat edge. Card it off with one of those green templates if you have to. We haven't done that yet. We're looking forward to actually really looking forward to working on this tomorrow. Hoping this has given you some ideas of stuff you can do on your own plane. Now this morning I only have about a half hour to spend here. I'm going to put all my templates away and save these. Maybe Midgley will want to paint, or somebody's going to do a tsunami. Who knows? Anyway. Very carefully going to pull all the tape and the tin foil off now. Look down here, make sure everything. I have to tell you, now that I'm back here and I see this, I really do like it. Very impressed. I want to pull all the tape off so there's no tape on, or off the canopy too, and then scrape some of these edges down. And the next step will be to get ready to paint the red. The next session we have. We only have about an hour today. Looking at that again, I have to admit I'm impressed. I like it. Anyway, we'll save these. You build a Tsunami, I'll loan you the cards. No problem. Now, because we let this dry 24 hours, we have this, it just breaks right off and flakes right off. You can almost get it off with your fingernail. That's half of the trick. The other trick we're going to get is the green lettering template and just shave this. A credit card is okay too, except mine is all worn out from my wife charging up things on a credit card, so I'll use a green template. We got one spot back here by the wave where it didn't come off nice and clean. Again, this is on a Mac lens, but we'll clean this edge right up. We're going to do some ink work up here, try to make some bubbles and simulate the drawing one. I've had one little piece, maybe you can see this, I don't know. The one little piece, I don't know why, the tape pulled up the paint, so right now I'll just seal this up with a little bit of filler, and I can block sand that in before I paint the red. But overall, I'd say that I have pretty much the look I wanted. I have all the tape off the plane now, that's the main thing. I don't want to that's the reason I came down here today, even though it's a weekend. I want to just get the tape off the plane. Now I feel safe. Nothing bad can happen. But when you leave that tape on more than 24 hours, you leave it on an extra day, forget about it. Pain in the neck. Always get the tape off 24 hours later. Okay, see these green, any of these lettering templates, they have an edge, which usually lasts quite a long time. And it's just perfect for shaving. If you shave off the edges here. Dope and lacquer usually leave a nice sharp edge. Now we're going to backmask this, so we want to have that edge nice and clean when we backmask it. Some of the things never to do, never for any reason, sand the edges. A razor can work real well, but you have to be real careful with it. And we're going to be going around this whole canopy with ink eventually, so I want to get a nice smooth line so I can trace this on by hand. Again, I'm going to go back. When you're on flat surfaces, you can just shave. Then shave from the other direction. This one we can get this way. Knocks the edge right off in one stroke of the pen. Whenever you use sandpaper, you run the risk of the color bleeding right through. It's a good little trick that's worth its weight in gold. Credit card is a good choice. I'm just trying to think. I tried steel wool at one time. That didn't work at all. That was terrible. This is the best thing. This or a credit card. Now I got a couple little areas of overspray here. I'm just going to take a razor and scrape them out. Now I'm just looking around. There's 2 or 3 little spots here where the tape pulled up a little bit of the silver. And just touch them up with, oh, here they are over here. So that when we go over it with the red later on in the week, we don't have a bare spot. All this is just to cover up a bare spot. Alright, that's it for today. The next time we get to work in here, we're going to, well, hopefully we'll get the little stripe painted. There's a blue stripe goes along here. And then we'll backmask the whole thing and try to get the red. Now today it's finally time to start spraying the red. So the first thing I'm going to do, pull off the rudder, mask off that little piece there that has the blue wave on it. Mask off the tips and leave a little bit extra for the stripe. And then I have also the elevators. I can practice on the elevators. I want to get my technique down with all little parts. And hopefully, if we have enough time, get the main frame even painted in red today. That's what we're looking forward to. And boy, I'm really looking forward to seeing this guy in red. Now with excuse me, with the blue ends on the flap, I'm leaving 2 1/8" tape stripes, and then I'm going to mask this back so that I can paint this red, and I'll have a little ditch in here. Now keep in mind, this will have paint, this will have no paint, and this will have paint. So then what I'll do is mask this and fill it with a brush, and I'll have a perfect stripe, and it'll all be level. One level, one level, one level. Otherwise, if you paint on top of the blue or on top of the red, you wind up with a mountain here, and then you have to put 10, 15 coats of clear to bury it down. So this will be real nice, and of course I have to do the same thing on the wing to match. Now here's the one that's already done. Already has the tin foil on, and by building a ditch into the program, I ensure that I'll have the minimum amount of clear right over the finish. Once you put paint on top of paint on top of paint, even though this is a small thing, it's going to start adding grains here and grains there of clear dope. I got everything back masked, and you see, one of the advantages of doing it this way, now see how much masking I have? I just have the tips, the little piece of the rudder, and the ends of the flaps, and of course the canopy. Otherwise, if I had painted the whole plane red first, now I'd have to mask off the whole damn plane. So you can see how this system, it eliminates about 90% of the work. In fact, you have less than an hour of back masking, and you're ready to go shoot some paint. So let me fire up the compressor and do a little test on the elevators and see how this is going to look. Now the all-important test, I got the first coat, I tested the rudder, took it out in the sun, and it looks like it's covering fine, so we're in good shape here, I think. Okay, after doing the flaps and the elevators, I got the elevators over there somewhere too. I have the paint fine-tuned. I added a little more thinner. It's a little colder in here than I thought it originally was, and I'm ready to start spraying it. So what I'm going to do is take this out in the backyard, get as much sprayed outside as I can, then come in here and just kind of finish off the part that I'm just holding for the first time, which is usually up by the nose. So let's go outside and get it. No sense looking at it. Time to spray. Now what I did, I got most of this done upside down outside. Now the last little bit, obviously you can't hold the front. So I got it propped up under where the paint is dry with 2 paper towels. Now I can get underneath by the cowl. And what I want to do is after this coat has tacked out for maybe 10 minutes, I want to go around in all the spots that you see, the focal points, I want to get a second coat on. Although the paint, I'm not even having to go over the silver with this paint. Anybody wants any of this paint, call Midgley. This is great stuff. Again, I'm trying to get one coat on. There's no point making this an all-night thing here. I'm getting one coat on, letting it just glass off for about 5 minutes, and then putting on like a light coat right on top of it. The whole plane, now this is, I filled the gun once with red paint, so I'm on the second 8-ounce cup. I suspect a lot less than 18 ounces of paint will cover. And because it's real good coverage, I'm expecting we're not going to pick up an awful lot of weight here. All the spots that need a little touch-up, like the fillets and the top block, where we have an awful lot of filler and gone back and forth over and over again. Now all that hard work pays off. Now you start to see the result of all those sanding of the silver coats. And I just don't know a lighter, better way of doing it than the way I've described on these videos, which you can apply to any airplane. Doesn't have to be a Pattern Master or Tsunami or whatever. You can do a full Walker thing with it. But it's a good technique. I usually allow about 2 ounces for colored paint. I think we're going to get away a little bit lighter than 2 ounces on this one because of the good coverage. I think you can see we're going right over the paint underneath. Now the trick is let this cook off, maybe 5 minutes or so. Get in by the cowling, in by all the scoops and everything up here, by the paint. And what I'll have to do is let this dry for a while, and then get in here. We'll put the plane on its back and get in by the cowling a little more. But I want to give this just till it's dry to the touch. Now the wing is already dry to the touch. Now the big part is, now you have one light coat of paint on the whole plane. Now look around for any little spot that you think you're going to have to sand out a little blemish or anything, and give it a little extra shot. The nose I always give a little extra paint to. Somehow the nose always, the paint wears thin. By buffing it and picking it up by the nose, and all the geeks out at Flushing that pick the plane up with, ice hooks and everything. And that means you, Joe Ortiz. Pick it up with white gloves on. Anyway, just kidding around here. All the spots we're going to really see or that we may buff right through. The top fillet, I'm not concerned at all with the bottom. The bottom can just stay the way it is. I want to get all the focal points. Because again, we're really trying to keep the weight down, and one of the ways we're doing that is by not piling the paint on the tail. The leading edges of everything always take a beating when you're buffing and sanding. Always a good idea to give them a second shot if you can. This color covers a whole lot better than the yellow, so I suspect I can get under 2 ounces. When I actually do the final weigh-in on this, I'll be under 2 ounces for the color. The color really covers well. Midgley did his homework. And anybody's interested in this color paint, just give Midgley a call. He'll arrange it for you. Okay, the trick here now, just let it dry, and then we'll get the bottom by the cowling, all the little spots inside. Look around. And then the big trick. If you leave this trick out, you're in trouble. we got to get this thing out in the sunlight later and look for any spots that look thin and get them doubly redded, because red, the sun is going to fade the red, there's dye instead of pigment in this paint, and you're going to go out and by the end of the season it's not going to be as bright and shiny as it is. I'd like it to be bright and shiny. Maybe for 10 years. Now, as always, this is going to have to sit 24 hours before we pull off the tape. And luckily, I have plenty of other work to do. We're doing our bathroom renovation, of course, and so there's no willpower involved. What I did do, though, and it was interesting, is I took one of the elevators and put it over by the Red Baron, and I thought the Red Baron red was kind of bright in the sun. When you take both of them out in the sun, this is about 30% brighter. So this should be, when it's buffed out and rubbed out and hundreds of hours of rubbing and tender love and care, this should be a real special color. It should be real nice. And again, anybody that needs the details on what the color is or wants to get some of the paint, get it direct from Dave Midgley. He's the source for this paint, and I'm real happy with it. I took what was left in the gun out. It was about 4 ounces, so we used a total of 12 fluid ounces to do all the red on the airplane. And I guess that's as good as it gets. I don't think it's going to get a whole lot better than that. But if you use this paint, be absolutely sure you add Flexol, because it is acrylic. We use Flexol and fisheye killer, and even though I mixed it with some clear dope, I can give you that formula. I have it written down, but I fine-tuned it so many times that it's probably not going to be relevant. But if you're interested, you know, give Dave a call, get the paint, and give me a call, and we'll try to work up the formula for you. Okay, see you tomorrow. Time for working on the bathroom. Now today I want to pull a tape off, but I want to show one little mistake we had. I don't think I put this on a video. I had a little blister here, right here where it kind of picked up, and what I did, I just took a razor while the paint was wet, slit the blister and pressed it back down. Now maybe as we go along here, I'm going to try to focus in on this. But what I'm going to have to do is soak this with some clear, with some thinner in it, and then just hope it sits down. But as we go along, I'm feeling all of the fillets here before I pull up the tape, because while the tape is still on there, hey, it's real easy to touch this up. I've already put a little bit of extra red on this, but I'm just going to wait and see the next time I hit this with clear if it kind of bubbles up. I'm trying to keep the paint on the plane to a minimum. Now I want to obviously get the tape off. This has been sitting here for 24 hours. I want to get the tape off and break that nice edge down with the with the green template out here. And I'll get that done now. Ah, finally got all the tape off. Hey, what a job. Yeah. Now this is a step I really don't want to leave out. This is something a lot of guys overlook. We have all the paint on the airplane now, except for some of the little details. I have the little stripe, the dark blue between the light blue tips. I'm going to mask that off and do that right now. From this point on, I put a brand new bed sheet that just came out of the dryer. From this point on, I want my hands clean. I have the WD-40 can here. Anytime I get some grease on my hands, I clean it right up. I try to keep everything on the plane immaculate, because as we get further and further into the paint job, from this point on, fingerprints are going to show. Some people like to wear rubber gloves. My hands are so dry it's not necessary, but if you have like office worker hands, you may want to use rubber gloves. I have quite a few little things on the plane that I want to touch up, and I'll kind of go over them. There's 2 or 3 little spots where the tape kind of peeled up the silver paint, and what I've done is just put some hot stuff and glued it right back down. It's usually right on the edges, the trailing edge or the leading edge. That's where the buildup is the thickest and it's the weakest. So I want to do around the canopy. I want to add the trim around the canopy, and I want to add the stripe to the wingtips. But from this point on, everything has to be perfectly clean. I'm going to vacuum up every couple hours. I don't want any little tape around. I don't want grease on my hands. I don't want to be doing tile work upstairs and have grout dripping off my nose and stuff. I just want to, from this point on, really baby the airplane and keep fingerprints, keep everything to a minimum that might be a little blemish in the finish. And I have the 2 or 3 little reds. I'm looking at it right now. 2 or 3 little red spots, that one up by the nose I want to keep an eye on now. There's one just in front of the canopy that looks like the paint might not be sticking exactly the way I want. But I'm still at the point where I can do these little repairs, glue it back down with hot stuff, put the pinholes in, whatnot, whatnot. I have all the flaps and elevators and everything. Actually, I can start putting clear on the elevators. The elevators don't have any trim on this plane. But I am going to lay out the striping now and hope that, well, everything's been drying a day and a half now. It should be that the tape will hold real well. Let's see, what usually happens is right by the trailing edge. That's where the tape picks it up. I'll just fix that with a little bit of clear. It kind of looks like this little guy is staying down now, but you never know. Don't trust him until you put some clear on it. There was another spot up here. Whoop, right up on the leading edge. See how it pulled up just a little piece. Now what I do with this is I can just take a little bit of clear on a brush. I'm going to mask this off first and just give it 2 or 3 coats of clear 5 minutes apart, and then lay the dark blue stripe in there. So, but one of the things I want to share with you, and I really, you know, this is really the bottom line here, is don't think for a minute, anybody on the planet, I don't care who you are or how many concourses you've won, when you pull up tape like this, there's always little spots you have to touch up. And now is the time. What I'm going to do for the next couple of days, I'll have a little jar with the light blue, a little jar with the red, a little jar with the dark blue, a little jar with the color of the canopy, a little jar with all the colors in the wave, sitting right by my side. And anytime I find a little imperfection, I'm going to pick away at this like a crazy man now, and spend an awful lot of time just picking away at the flaws now, because that's what's going to separate the top level planes, is that there isn't any flaws, or that the flaws are hidden and they're not obvious. So, you know, I'm not going to put a whole lot of it on video, but believe me, I'll be picking away at this like an old chicken in a rooster cage, boy, or, you know, I don't know a right way to say it. This is a time to just get fussy. I'll lay out the rudder here, make sure I don't have any little spots that don't match, even though I sprayed it all together. I want to get all of the edges knocked down with the green template. We did that on the video already, so we're going to just, you know, just spend the rest of the day being fussy here and trying to get that stripe on the wing. Now, a couple of the rules for doing striping, simple rules that you can use yourself no matter what the paint job is. If the stripe is more than 1/4 of an inch wide, it's 1/4 of an inch or less, you brush it on. If it's more than 1/4 of an inch wide, you back mask it and spray it either with an airbrush or a brush. In this case, we're only looking at 1/4 inch stripe, so we're just going to brush it on. Now, I have the paint relatively thin. I put about 1/3 thinner in for brushing. And I'm just trying to get, you really need 3 coats no matter what you think. You may try to get away with 2, and then you take it out in the sun and you'll see the 3rd coat. You need the 3rd coat. So in this case, I'm just going to put 1 coat on, and then as I go to mask off the other piece, this one will be drying. So I'll actually get all 3 of them on today. And tomorrow morning I'll pull up the tape. Remember that old rule, the golden rule here. Under 1/4 inch stripe, brush it. More than 1/4 of an inch, just back mask it and spray it. In this case, it's 1/4 of an inch, so this is the easiest, quickest way to do it. I got the 2nd coat of the stripe on here. Of course, I had to do the matching thing on the flap. As that's drying, I'm going to work on this little, I'll blacken out the scoop with some black dope. And now while this is drying, I'll flip this over and work on the canopy. Now, one of the tricks is while you're doing this kind of touch-up and maintenance and striping and everything, just leave the jaws open for the whole day. And stick the brushes in them when you're done. And this way you're not tempted to, oh, I won't touch that up because it's too much work opening up the jar. You always have the jar open here. Ideally, if you had some some nice little tiny jaws, you know, like baby food jaws would be great. But I'm leaving them right in a can. Leave it out for the whole day while I'm doing this work. Now, in laying out this outline, you know, if you look at a Reno Air Racer, this whole back of the canopy comes up real, I don't know, slick looking, I guess the right word. But to simulate it in the right size and shape here and get both sides even took a lot longer than I thought it would. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dope this on with some black dope and hopefully get a little view of how this is going to look. I really had to lay this out about 75 times before I got to the point where I really liked it. Yeah, I got 2 coats of black on here now. Just going to give it the old overnight trick before I run and pull the tape off. We'll let all this stuff sit overnight now, and we'll pull the tape off tomorrow. That's about all we really can expect to do today. Pull off the tape tomorrow, and we'll start on, well, let's see. We've still got about 400,000 little details to work on here. Anyway, I want to get this wave inked in. I want to get some ink work done. Letrosets are coming. Got a lot of cool other little stuff to do. So for right now, just got to put them to bed and be patient. All right, hey, let's have a cup of coffee and get all this tape off today. Now, one of the neat things about, you know, doing what we're doing here, modeling and stuff, is the exchange of things. When I was building the Red Baron, so many people sent me literature and data and pictures and everything. I had a hard job returning the favor. We got a bunch of Tsunami stuff in the mail today. And I'll tell you a funny story. This is really funny. I'll do it real quick. The guy in West Virginia, when I was a kid, he was flying a Dynajet stunt ship. And nobody in the Circle Burners, nobody ever knew who this guy was. But everybody remembers the ship at the 60 Nats, the 57 Nats, whatever it was. Well, the guy called me up. He saw in Pampa Stunt News that they were building Tsunami, and he had some pictures in a magazine he wanted to share with us. And today the magazine, I had about an hour phone call with him. He called up and offered the magazine. I sent him the Tsunami video, the last flight of Tsunami. I want to show you what happened just now. See now, on an ongoing basis, we just pulled up a little piece of red. I have the little brush with the red on it. I'll go get some red, put a drop of red on that. Before we, you know, I don't want it to get, now these edges I'm going to clean up. It's always good. When it dries overnight, the edges come right off. But I do it on an ongoing basis. But anyway, let me finish the story. And the fellow's name is Ron Janig. And it's funny, now this is funny, I just take a 1-minute break here. We're getting near the end of this tape anyway. Ron lives in West Virginia, and he called up. I've never met him, he's never met me, but I remember that day when I was a young kid. That Dynajet stunt ship just blew my mind. And he's been a fan of Tsunami all these years, and he's saved pictures, and he has magazines, and they came in the mail today. I'm going to put them on the end of this video. But how you meet people that you haven't met in, this would be 57, this would be, oh my God, 30 years or whatever. A long time. I remember him. I'm sure he doesn't remember me, but it's so nice that somehow through the magazine and through model planes we get to know each other and exchange pictures, exchange videos, and I just think that's a tremendous, you know, step for mankind. Anyway, I'll put them on the end of the video. One of the things I did get, talking about stuff, this is from, I got a bunch of these from Frank Paskovich. Now, I've used these in the past. They're called chart packs. They're little dots and numbers and lines. If you decide to use any brand other than, we're going to come up on the Letraset part of this real soon. If you decide to use any brand other than Letraset, they tend to melt. Tom Lay and Letraset ones, you just put a couple of coats of very thick clear with very little thinner, and you shouldn't have a problem. When you use this brand, which is Chart Pack, you had better get that first coat on very, very, very dry. These seem to melt about twice as fast as Letrasets or Tom Lay Letrasets. So, just be aware, you can use them, and again, we got all kind of neat dots and squares and stars and who knows what else, jock straps and brassieres and everything. But if you want to fill your plane up and cover mistakes, this is a good way to do it. Obviously, best choices don't have mistakes. But in the meantime, I think it's neat now. Over the past 2 or 3 years, Frank Pascovich, of course, is the one that developed the fillet method with the, I'm trying to even think of the Gold Bond light taping compound. Never did I realize that in the past year I'd use 1,000 gallons of the junk. But he even sent, honest to God, I'm not kidding, he sent up a 5-gallon pail of this stuff. So anyway, we become good friends. I enjoy sharing this information with him. I enjoy, you know, just exchanging little ideas like this. Anyway, we'll get on to pulling off all this tape and see what it looks like. Now, as I probably said 1,000 times already, I like to touch this up. These are all the little spots, and we have a couple of them here. Generally, they're on the edge. But if you do it on an ongoing basis, where every day that you work on it, just go over to the little jar and put a little touch-up paint on it. What happens is at the end of the, when we go to do the clear and electrosets and everything, you don't wind up with a monumental job that's a backbreaker. You're just constantly doing this. It's like cleaning up. If you clean up a little bit every day, you get to the end of the week and you don't have a shop that looks like a toilet. So I just have the cap here and just put the little dots. Any place I see where the tape kind of lifted it up. In fact, here I see another spot I didn't even see where the paint is kind of funky. I laid in a couple more coats up by the scoop where it wasn't just right, and I see a little spot right here. Any spot, you can touch these up, because what's going to happen is the clear eventually is just going to blend everything right in. You won't even see it. This is that little trailing edge spot where the paint is soft. We're having a problem. See how that peels back? Now what I'm going to do is I'll get a little drop of thin CA in it, just a tiny drop. Push this up quick and get your finger off it so your finger doesn't glue to it. It's hard for me to do this on camera, but I'm going to try. And no matter how careful you always have these little things. Up. If you hold your finger there, for sure it's going to glue to it. No kicker, just... Now we'll get one little drop of touch-up paint on there, and if you know how to cover up all these little glitches, the final finish will be perfection.
And Richard Martin. Can you imagine that you think it's eyewitness news, including on the...
I always like to eyeball everything from several angles here just to see how it's looking. And then the next step on that will be the lettering, and we'll finalize all the details with an ink pen when it comes time to do that. So this is looking like we got most of what we set out to do today. We got the flaps pretty much ready for ink and letrosets. Whatever, more details. I'm going to make up a little list later on today of all the little details I have left to work on here. See, one of the things I do, I make up a little priority list of things I want to do. And so as I go down a list, I can check off with the letrosets I want to do and the ink and whatever. That's one of the things I'm going to work on next. I have the pad out. Want to work on making up a list of the little details still left to do on this guy. And in the order that I want to do them in, I want to figure out the order. That's important too, that you don't get the horse ahead of the cart, get the midgely ahead of the bagel or anything like that. Anyway, we still have the Tsunami lettering to do. We still have letrosets, ink. Oh my God, 8, 10 other things here. We're going to kind of just look at him outside in the snow now and make sure the red isn't thin in any spots. I've noticed the tip here. There's a spot I missed right out on the tip. I'm going to get the airbrush and I'll touch that up off camera. Couple little spots I still want to touch up. I want to lay them out, get that overall look. And before I go on to the next step, because if there's any touching up, by the way, let's see how this is drying up. Now there's quite a bit of paint still around that seam. I got quite a bit of paint in there, but it looks like it's sticking down pretty good. Maybe we'll luck out on that. If not, you know the routine. Number 11 X-Acto, CA, load it with paint and wet sand it down. Anyway, what I'm hoping here, you know, the hope of hopes is that you pick up little tips, how to do things efficiently, effectively. And you can apply this to any plane. You can go build a Magnum, you can use all these little tips and techniques and everything. Even little things like sticking the razor blades in a box of wood that you don't wind up sticking your finger in them. Just having a block of wood glued to the table. Having your stuff in boxes. Just the little scraper for the table. I want to put some of the pictures from this air racing magazine on the end of this video. We're sneaking up on the end of the video. There's, see, the Tsunami. Oh my God, Salami Tsunami. Getting ready to do the final details here, and we're really psyched. I don't think I've ever been more psyched up about a model in all my life. It's just a shame that this is not going to be the kind of a season where, you know, I'll be able to devote 1,000% to it because of the house, but I certainly will make an all-out effort to, you know, do as much as I can and make it as competitive as possible. I was sneaking up on the end of the tape here, and one of the things I always do at the end of a day of building or taping or whatever is I always try to lay the model on the floor and look at it from the angles that you'd look at it while it's, you know, while it's sitting on the ground waiting to be appearance pointed. And because I consider this to be the twin here of the Red Baron, I kind of been putting them together lately, looking at how they look together when they're sitting here kissing and hugging, and I hope that's where they leave it while I'm upstairs. Anyway, just to get a little look, another thing this tells me is that the color red here is going to be very, very bright in the sun, and the blue, it looks like once it's buffed out, is going to be a very, very effective contrast to the red. And it's just one of the things I like to do is constantly look and see, you know, how this is coming out, how is it looking, just that mind's eye view, constantly looking at it over and over and over again. And just one of the interesting side notes for anybody that doesn't know, Steve Hinton, the pilot of the one of the pilots of the Red Baron, Steve Hinton was one of the pilots of Tsunami too, so I try to look at the canopy and try to, you know, even though the other one doesn't have a canopy, I try to get so they have that same look with the slant in the back and all the little lettering. Boy, I'm really looking for. I wish I didn't have to sleep. One of the problems with this whole thing is I'm psyched up and I really want to get on with this. I want to end this video with the pictures from that Air Classics Air Racer magazine. That'd be a good way to finish out the last minute or two of this. Hope that you get some inspiration from it. Hope that you maybe we can get Adamusco to build a Tsunami. I know Whiteley is a lover of Mustangs, and boy, I'll tell you, I just one of the happiest times of my life sitting down here watching it snow outside and working on Tsunami. It's the time I'll never forget, believe me. Okay, just some of the pictures in that magazine, and I really having a good time with this. Keep in mind, Gerald Champ is already working on plans to Tsunami, and maybe you know, we can get Walt Prey to do one of these lettering things. Who knows? T-shirts are coming in this week. You want plans? You want T-shirts? We may or may not even be working on a kit before the season's over. So stay tuned if you want. I'll just run through some of the pictures in this, give you some air race inspiration here. Nice. Now we're going to be making these, of course, the detailed exhaust pipes. We still have some of the, have to make the gear doors up. God, there's still so much to do. Awful lot to do. This is the old paint job. This is, for anybody who doesn't know, this is the original Tsunami paint job. Either one of these is just beautiful. Adamusco, build it. Build it and paint it. You have unlimited talent and money and effort and everything. Build a damn thing. He gets me started building this. And then he goes and relaxes and has a good time. Come on, build a dollhouse, man. Do something. Now, originally, Tsunami had a whole totally different scoop. The whole top was been changed. In fact, this is an older magazine. And you can see the older paint job here, the Wave of the Future. Didn't have the numbers exactly the same and whatever. Anyway, this is just a Dynamite magazine. And this is the kind of thing now I look for little details here. I may or may not, because this is not a scale model. I've said that, I think it was on the beginning of this video. I'm not making an Al Rabe scale model. It's a fantasy model. So if I want to put the lettering here or there or anywhere or whatever, I can kind of improvise a little bit. I just want to get that overall flavor of Tsunami. And obviously I want to make a total dedication to John Sandberg's dream. Somewhere on the plane I'll put a little dedication to the memory of John Sandberg. But anyway, I think he'd be proud of this model. I hope I'm proud of it. You know, just if you don't have magazines to work off of on a pen, look at this. I just love this. All the details here. I want to obviously try to get some of these into the final model. But, and again, because it's not a total semi-scale Al-Rabe type of model, I can improvise the lettering here and put my own name here and put Windy's a cool guy, or Midgley's a jerk, anything I want over here. This is the idea of doing a fantasy model. This is not really a total semi-scale model. It's kind of a fantasy version. Here's Steve Hinton in a cockpit. That a rivet detail. We're going to try to incorporate some of this detail in. The way the canopy opens is cool. There's a picture taken after the accident. You can see the prop is all bent up and everything. Oh, God. This makes me sick. Some of the other pictures here, just to run through them real quick. Yeah, I could sit in a bathroom and read this magazine all day. There's just picture of how they actually made the fuselage, the different prop work they did. It just goes on and on and on. There's just no end to it. Here's a nice back view of Tsunami. Now looking down the scoop. Just no end to it. Steve Hinton, just unbelievable. Now if you're looking for a subject, something really unusual, or you want to steal, this is Al-Rabe had died. This is Al-Rabe Sea Fury, and it's the man that the sponsor or the owner, whatever, is a levelor, and of course levelor makes blinds, and they call this blind man's bluff. Just another inspiring picture. Hey, ideas for paint jobs, lettering. Look how the canopy opens. There's a lot of cool stuff you can get off of this picture. Lettering on the tie. I think Bob Barron actually did lettering like that with his hometown name instead of Bob Barron. Now this is lettering. This is Walt Prey stuff. Spun aluminum gold or silver leaf. This is outlined by hand. I mean, this is just, oh man. Just look at the lettering. The lettering is done in spun silver leaf. Look for details. Look for ideas. This is just one of my little inspirations here. Just one of them. This is Skip Holm, by the way. I'm getting to the point where I know these guys like a guy that knows football players by just looking at Lawrence Taylor. I know this is Skip Holm just by his face from looking at all these crazy videos. One thing unusual about a Sea Fury, anybody doesn't know, a Sea Fury is a giant airplane, just tremendous. It's by 3 times the size of Tsunami. Look at the size of a man compared to a Sea Fury. Al-Rabe, where are you now? I know you were pissed off at the event when you left, but boy, I'll tell you, I wish you were back. More pictures, and this issue just goes on and on. There's just no end to it. Unbelievable. Walt Russell, another one that just loves bear cats and racers and everything. Unreal. Lots of good ideas in this magazine. Real nice picture of Dreadnought, another Sea Fury. Dreadnought, number 8. And I'm just going to say again, because I really believe it, I really believe one of the special things about our event and the people in it is just sharing the material. Sharing things, sharing spinners and wheels and ideas and things like we do is just so special and so different than any other hobby I've ever been involved in. Wing-to-wing picture of Strega here. Oh my God, Strega. I love it. We could do a Red Baron wing and make a Strega. Number 7. Just some of these double-page, fold-out color photos. Unreal. Again, I got this magazine from a guy I have never met. I just think it's unbelievable that we had a nice conversation and we're exchanging videos and magazines we've never actually met, and yet we do share the interest in these type of airplanes. I think that's just so cool. Well, I hear Karen upstairs calling, come on baby, come to bed, party's over. No more Reno Air Racers till tomorrow. Anyway, I hope you really enjoyed sharing these pictures. And if you haven't seen that video, the last flight of Tsunami, I'll be glad to loan you a copy. Just give me a call, drop me a note, watch it, be inspired, get some ideas, pass it around to your friends. If you have any magazines like this, I'd sure like to borrow them. Once I capture them on video, I'll return them. Just a neat thing we can share, one of the things we can share in the hobby.